Hello y'all, and welcome to Young Folk Knits. Today it's a really rainy and sort of dreary day outside. It's pretty chilly again as well, but I have a lot of things I need to accomplish. First of all, I need to finish my tessellated cardigan. So my tessellated cardigan was due yesterday and I finished everything. I blocked it. The only thing I have left is to finish a few rounds of ribbing on one of the sleeves, and I need to sew on the buttons. So I plan on getting that done, as well as taking some pictures of my finished object because Thursday is release day. Then I need to cast on a few new projects. And I have a little bit of a craving for strawberry cheesecake. So I think I'm going to make one of those as well. So stick around and we'll see what I can accomplish today. Hello y'all, and welcome back to Young Folk Knits. My name is Casey, and if you're new here, this is a channel where I mainly like to share all about my love for fiber arts. So there's very heavy knitting content, but I also share about sewing, spinning, and whatever other crafts I might be getting up to at the moment, like crochet or embroidery or painting, whatever it might be. I also occasionally share about living on a small farm in Arkansas where my husband, myself, and our kids are beekeepers. We love raising chickens and animals and gardens and spending time outdoors here in the foothills of the Ozarks. So if any of that sounds like it might be your cup of tea, then make sure and hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on any new video content. As I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of things to check off my list today. First of all is my tessellated cardigan. So this was a test knit for Andrea Mowry, and it is releasing Thursday. The test info was actually due yesterday, and I had finished everything except the very end of one of the sleeves. But thankfully I had enough to give my numbers, and what I ended up doing was going ahead and blocking this. I soaked it and blocked it with a cord keeper, a stitch keeper, a barber cord, some silicone tubing that I put into the sleeve here, and I was able to block this as it was, and then I'm just finishing up the 8 rounds of ribbing that I need to have this completed. The other thing I need to do is sew on buttons. So I think what I'm going to do is finish that up, and then when it's all done, I need to take pictures. Actually, let me show you what I think I'm going to wear. So the colors that I ended up choosing for my cardigan, and I'm going to go into all the details about my cardigan after I finish getting it all ready. But the colors I chose were some of my favorites. I love this color combination. This is a golden, greeny brown. And then there's lots of green mixed in with it because of the alpaca I used. It was a green color. Because of the all over patterning and the colors I chose, I wasn't quite sure how to style it. So I ended up pulling out a t-shirt. This is one of my favorite t-shirts. It says support your local library. And it's a off-white beige color. And I think what I'm going to do is wear that with my olive green corduroy pants. These are some wide leg, non-stretch, just sort of big funky olive corduroy pants. And so I think what I will do is put these two together with my cardigan, and I'll probably wear that to take some pictures of it so I can share it for release day. So I need to do about 8 rounds of 1x1 ribbing. I need to do a tubular sewn bind off, and then I need to sew on buttons. I also kind of want a cheesecake, so I think I'm gonna get that started as well. We'll chat more about this soon. Today I think I'll watch All Creatures Great and Small while I finish some of my work. I find it very calming and very nostalgic. When I knit cuffs for my sweaters, I usually like to use 9-inch circular needles. I find this is faster for me than magic loop, though I know many people prefer to use long circular needles. Another tool that I have found to be a real help to me is a darning needle with a bent tip. I really feel this is an essential for me now. The bent tip makes it so much faster when I'm doing a sewn bind off and weaving in ends. And speaking of sewn bind offs, there are definitely times when I prefer to do a bind off in pattern, but I think often it is warranted to have a nice beautiful edging with a tubular bind off. When it comes to cast-ons, I truly can do a tubular cast-on faster than a long tail cast-on at this point. So I usually opt for that if the cast-on edge is going to be visible. The tubular bind off, however, is very much dependent on my mood. These are some lovely wooden buttons that I actually found on Amazon. I was looking for a chocolate brown color, and I feel that they really fit the old world style of this cardigan. Hey everybody, I have finished my cardigan. It is officially done. Ends are woven in, buttons are sewn on, it's blocked, it's done, and I can take a big deep breath and have a sigh of relief. I am so happy that it's finished, and I want to tell y'all all about my tessellated cardigan. So the Tessellated Cardigan is a pattern for Andrea Mowry, and I did test this, and I also used the recommended yarns for the test knit. So the sample calls for a sport weight, more solid color yarn, and then a sport weight color shifting yarn, which is similar to Spincycle dyed in the wool. That's what's suggested. Another great option though is hand spun, Zauberball, Crazy. That is a fingering weight, but I think it will sub in just fine, as well as Cascade 220. I think it's called the Wave, maybe. I'll put it in the description. There's lots of different color shifting yarns. My top choice is hand spun. I think that's super fun. I tested this alongside Sam Fusco, and she used her hand spun yarn in her sample, and I think it's absolutely stunning. So I think that's a really great option. I, however, did use Spincycle dyed in the wool, which is their sport weight super wash wool, and I used the color Slow Burn, which is one of Spincycle's colorways made exclusively for Farmer's Daughter fibers. I really like the purple and the rubies in it. It had a very gemstone quality, jewel tones, and I thought that it would pair really well with the other yarn that I used, which is from Farmer's Daughter's fiber, and it is their lace weight Surrey Alpaca Oh Dang base. Now in that color I used Oh Dang, nope, in that color I used the Den, which is this really lovely green. And then for my main color I used Spinster's Daughter, which is a wool yarn that is spun by Spincycle and then dyed by Farmer's Daughter Fibers. This is the color Sunnies. So those are my three colors, and I have to say I think that they paired together really nicely. It gives me an oak room library sort of vibe, which is what I'm all about. So I'm very happy with the colors. I tested the size 5. Let me check the gauge. What is the gauge? So the gauge it calls for is 28 stitches per 4 inches and 40 rounds per 4 inches, or 40 rows. So I did have a lot of trouble reaching that gauge. I'm such a loose knitter. The pattern suggests a US 4 for the body and 2 for ribbing. I did have to go down. I needed a 1 for ribbing and a 3 for the body, and honestly I could have gone down to even further, but I just wasn't gonna do that. I decided to just block it very gently so that it would keep me on gauge. I'm very pleased with it. The tessellated pattern can be found in the pullover, the vest. That was Andrea Mowry's Rhinebeck sweater from 2023. And then there were socks. And before all of it though, there was the Rad Plaid cowl. I think that's the pattern that started it all. So now I'm waiting for the hat. We'll see what else comes out. But this pattern, if you've knit it before, then you know it creates an absolutely lovely mosaic knitting pattern. And that means that you're only using 1 color per row. So what that means is that you're slipping stitches that you're not knitting, and then on the next row you will knit the stitches that you slipped, basically. It's a little bit more involved than that, but pretty much that's what it boils down to. So you're not stranding a color along. Instead, you only use 1 color per row. And I think that that's really nice. However, you still have 3 balls of yarn connected, and that can cause for some yarn management fun. There's always, 3 balls that are tangling up. Beauty is pain, I guess. Anyway, it does feel like a bit of a beast to knit. I tested the vest, so I hadn't made the pullover, which meant no sleeves, and this felt, a little bit more. There was more to it than the vest. But I have to say, now that it's finished, I really, truly do love this. I think it's wonderful. I was really concerned that my sleeves were going to be too tight. And because of that, I may have even blocked them out too much. But in the end, I think that it fits really nicely. I don't feel squeezed anywhere. So then you do go back and you pick up the button band, and this calls for 8 15mm buttons. And I found these brown wood cheap buttons off of Amazon, and I really like them. They're a bit of a chocolatey color, and I think they look nice against the sunnies, and they go well with the green and the jewel tones. There are now a lot more sport weight options out there, and I think that's really nice because sport weight is such a great gauge. I really enjoy knitting with sport weight wool, and I like the fact that so many different places are offering it now. So to style this, I decided to wear my Support Your Local Library shirt, my olive green corduroys. So it's very, very comfy. It doesn't feel itchy at all. The alpaca doesn't bother me, which thank goodness, because I can't knit with mohair, so I'm so thankful that I can deal with Surrey. I actually really love Surrey. It doesn't bother me at all. So I'm really pleased with this. I would say that if you want to knit this sweater, just be prepared that it is going to be an investment in time, but in the end, I think it's well worth it. It is really a lovely stitch pattern. I think you can have a lot of fun with colors, and it can be a staple in your wardrobe that you could wear for a very long time. One thing I'm afraid I did do is knit my sleeves a tad bit long. I did that on purpose. I knit them longer than the pattern called for because I wanted to block my sleeves out widthwise, and so I thought, oh, I'm going to knit them longer so that I can pull some width out of them. But I was able to pull width out of it, and it still didn't really take a lot off of the length. So at some point, I might go back and shorten the... I would have to rip my ribbing out and then go back and rip probably an inch or an inch and a half of my patterned fabric and then re-knit the ribbing. But I don't want to do that enough at the moment. So I'm happy with it. I will wear it. It's not going to stop me. My hair, plant's eating my hair. It's not going to stop me from wearing it. So I really enjoy it. Also, I just want to apologize if I seem a little bit frazzled today. My daughter tested positive for the flu, and I am starting to get sick. So because of that, I am videoing this a little bit early, a few days earlier than I normally do, just because I want to make sure and get it done before I inevitably come down with the flu, as I feel like I am doing. So hopefully we can make it through today. That's all I'm going to chat about this for now. If I think of anything else, I'll share it on the next episode whenever my brain's working a little bit more clearly. But yes, I cried a lot to the other test knitters while I was making this because it felt like it was taking a long time to finish up. But, you know, we sort of cried to each other. Anyway, I'm so excited. I have a finished cardigan. This was my year of cardigans, if you remember. One thing I said I really wanted to knit more of this year was cardigans, and so I'm super excited. I can check off another one, add another one to my list of cozy cardigans to wear this year. Okay, so let me tell you 2 things that I'm casting on and 1 thing that I pulled from my whip pile. So I'm trying really hard to focus on 1 thing each week from my whip pile, and if I get super bored with it, that's okay. Next week I'll pick a different whip and work on it, but I want to at least give myself the week to knit on that 1 whip before saying, okay, I'm gonna work on a different whip. So this week I am choosing my Celeste sweater, which is a pattern by Petite Knit. It is a circular yoke pattern, and I believe this was either the size 5 or the size 6, but I think it must be the size 6. It does look like it's going to be a bit large for me, but that's okay. I did want a little bit of a more oversized, dramatic circular yoke piece that I don't knit too long. I want this to hit me right at my hip bones, and then I want to be able to tuck it into skirts and possibly French tuck it into pants if I want to, or wear it free where it hits me right below the waistband of my pants. So I'm knitting this out of Sandnes Garn Double Sunday for the main color. And then my contrast colors, I chose a mixture of Double Sunday and Peer Gynt bases. So all the colors are one of those two, and they're both DK weight yarns, but I do find that the Peer Gynt is loftier. It is not a merino wool. I think it's a Norwegian wool possibly. But I find it to be more of a worsted weight than a DK weight. Anyway, they melded fine. I do really love my colors in this, and so I'm super excited. It's just stockinette in the round. I've split for sleeves. I just need 2 sleeves and the rest of the body. So I am very happy to have a nice little stockinette in the round sweater. It means only knitting, no purling at this point. And have something a bit mindless that I can work on. I couldn't work on anything except this last week, and the week before felt very similar. So I'm glad that it's done. I'm just ready to move on. I really am, and that's one of the things I've decided to pick up. Another one that I'm going to be starting, I'm ready to cast this on today. This is the step-by-step cardigan, and it's a pattern in testing for Handmade by Florence. And that is her name here on YouTube and on Instagram. And I'm so excited. I have talked to y'all about this before. This was a pattern I really wanted to test last year, and I've been waiting for her to put a call out, and I was so excited that she accepted me into the test knit group. Wow, I'm looking and I already see multiple knots in this skein of Noro. So this is Noro Madara yarn, and I recently used it to make a full sweater. I loved it so much, and I had gotten the same base in the color Sake, and that's number 01 is also the color name. I just love it so much. It's such a neutral, but it has this lovely literal rainbow of colors in the skein. So I'm very excited. I wanted to make a cardigan out of it, and I wanted it to have a double knit button band. I had been looking for a pattern. I had even considered modifying the champagne cardigan to fit my gauge, and I saw that Florence was making one out of this exact yarn in this exact color, and I thought, how serendipitous. It was perfect. It was everything I was looking for. So I was so excited to be able to test this. So I need to cast this on today. It is got a very low stitch per inch number, so higher gauge, I guess is how you would say it. It should knit up extremely quickly. It is very classic and simple, and she makes these patterns along with YouTube videos to teach relative beginners at knitting how to knit a sweater. And she does have the one out for the raglan, and I think she might even have one for socks. So this is going to be a really nice addition to her patterns, this cardigan. The other one I wound my yarn up for is for the Porter cardigan, which is a pattern from Hudson and West. This is a pattern I'm knitting for my husband, and I am so excited to knit this for him. He is very excited. I'm a little bit intimidated by the amount of work that's going to go into it, but I guess he's worth it. He's definitely worth it. But this is the Hudson and West base Forge, which they did very kindly offer me yarn support for this cardigan. And he picked the color Midnight, which is the same as the sample is knit in. And this is going to be knit flat in pieces and seamed. So what I'm going to cast on first are the sleeves. I am excited to get working on those. The other thing I am working on right now is my make for the Woolly Knit and YoungFolk Knits Wool Along. So this is a make along where all you need to do is have a project that you're working on in progress made of wool. WIPs are welcome, and it can be any wool of your choice. However, if you would like to order from Woolly Knit, then you can use the code Casey20 for 20% off their new DK merino combs, their British wool combs, or British wool hanks. And I have to tell you, I have really fallen in love with their wool. If you are not new here, you may remember that I had chosen to knit the heirloom quilt cardigan pattern for my project. And I decided to knit the size 2, and I knew that my gauge was going to be a little bit bigger, but I didn't read the pattern closely enough. And the size square that I needed, the finished size that I was going to end up with was 70-inch circumference, which is just way too oversized for what I would actually wear. Because of that, I've decided to probably rip these back or else use them for something else, but I'm probably just going to rip them back out. And I'm going to re-knit, and I'm starting over with the size 1 squares. And I'm going to purposefully let my gauge be a little bit bigger than the size 1 square is supposed to be, so I can get a few more inches out of the finished circumference. That is my goal, and I will let y'all know next week how those squares are working out. I really just finished this today, so I'm just now going to get back into everything else that I have put on hold while I finish this test knit up. So this is going to be a week of starting many new things and getting back into a lot of the things that I was working on, which I am excited about. I also really like the fact that I feel like I had set some intentions for this year. I wanted to knit more cardigans. I wanted to knit something for my husband. I wanted to work on my WIPs, and I feel like I'm doing a decent job. I'm starting a cardigan for my husband, so there's 2 in 1. I have finished a cardigan. I'm about to cast on another cardigan for myself. And I'm also really trying to not stop working on my WIPs. So it may take me a while to finish them, but they're not put away and forgotten. I want to continue to give them some time, even if it's only a couple of days a week for, 30 minutes a day. That's okay. It's still forward movement and progress, and that makes me happy. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you enjoy videos like this, then please make sure and give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you won't miss out on any future content. I really hope that you are working on a project that you love this week. And until next time, happy knitting, y'all.